Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Oh my. We have a green 59 reissue today, guys. When I bought this guitar, I did not understand just how much history I was going to uncover about this instrument. This is not just your regular R9, and it's not just because it's a funky finish. This is a Cloud Nine Reissue guitar. These are chambered reissues. Now, before everybody clicks off the video, not all chambering is the same. I don't mean to hate on anyone's guitar here, but the modern day Les Paul standards that are chambered, the bulk majority of them that I've had, I did not personally find their tone attractive. However, there are other ones like some of the Guitar of the Week models, the Les Paul Elegance, that are also chambered, but they sound good. So in that aspect, not all chambering is the same. So just because a guitar has weight relief in small or massive quantities, you should definitely give them all a chance. The chambered reissues were kind of the brainchild of a guy named Dave Carpenter, who runs a music store called Music Machine. I guess he thought of these things in like the 90s or something, and he eventually got to work with Gibson, and they created the chambered reissue guitars. And because he didn't want to be the only dealer to have to market and sell these, he called up other dealers, and the two that ended up going into business with them to spread out the load that Gibson was putting on them to order in order to make it happen, you've got Dave's Guitar Shop and Wildwood Guitars, who also got to sell these. Now, a lot of the information I'm getting for this guitar came from a website called chamberedreissue.org. I highly suggest checking it out. That guy is as passionate about these chambered reissues as I am about Spotlight Specials, so it's definitely worth reading everything on his website. I'm just giving a brief summary and kind of an overview. I might not be 100% accurate on everything. These guitars were first released in 2004. To fully grasp just how special that makes this, the USA lineup of Les Paul standards were not chambered until late 2006 and onward. And for the first run, there was chambered reissues all the way from a 54 gold top through a 59 Les Paul. There were no 1960 reissues that time. According to that website, this guy tracks every single one that was ever in existence. He has serial numbers for the first year going all the way up until 64. His website has tracked 179 different first year examples from all the reissue lineups. Now, if you go through the website, you can see pictures of all of them. Now, you're probably wondering, just how many green ones are there? There's only one on his website, and it's this exact guitar. There's also one that is in a trans purple finish, which is closer to root beer. In that write-up, he states that it is the only one in that color, but for this green one, he did not. So that means there might be a few more of these out there, but I doubt that many. And there's also a really sweet blue burst. The rest of them were some sort of traditional cherry sunburst in all the varying different hues with monster flame tops. So that was the first run. I'm guessing that's probably the most desirable for collectors because, first time they did it, it's got some history to it. But then there was the second run in 2006. Now, just for the sake of being complete here, in 2005 there was one 52 reissue made with a hickory fretboard, and a 55 prototype was done in 2002. Now, in the second run, they did all the gold tops, they did the bursts, and they included the 1960. So you've got the R4 through the RO in the second run. There have been other runs since then, but I will just leave you guys the website in the description and you can learn all about it there. So the chambering inside of this guitar, is it the same as the USA Gibson Les Paul's chambering? No, it's not. The USA chambering looks like this. Notice how there's large areas, chunks of mahogany missing out of this guitar, but there are chambers, multiple. Take a look at the layout for the Cloud Nine Reissues. Notice how it is a chamber. There's not multiple ones, they are all connected from the toggle switch all the way through the control cavity. Now personally for me, this reminds me of the exact same thing as the Les Paul Elegant from the late 90s. However, the guy who runs the Chambered Reissue website states that it is not the exact same as an Elegant and it's more similar to a Gibson Johnny A. Look at this picture, look at that picture. Comparing the two, the Les Paul Reissues seem to have more of an outer edge to them, whereas the X-rayed image of a Les Paul Elegant shows that they're a little bit thinner. So it is very similar, but not quite the same. So if you need a lighter weight, kind of historic looking instrument, however you can't afford one of these because they're rare, or maybe you just can't find them at all times, I would say go for a Les Paul Elegant. It would probably be the most similar item out there. Now, Les Paul Elegant, if you don't know, they're not really reissues. They have a Nashville-style bridge, which disqualifies them from that. They don't have the historic spec plastics, whereas this does. And that brings us to the next topic. There are some butthurt people out there that say these are not actually reissues because Gibson didn't make them like this in the 50s. Well, apparently Les Paul has been quoted from 2003 saying Gibson did make hollowed out Les Pauls for him and Mary back in the 50s. So with that argument, if it is true, yes, you can call this a reissue. But everything else about this is historically spec'd. You have your nickel hardware, ABR1 bridge, long neck tenon, historically placed truss rod cover, the good looking inlays, thin binding in the cutaway. It's got all that good stuff. It's just the whole chambering that's different from historic specs on these guys. So the cream of the crop historics that aren't chambered at all, I think the very lightest you would ever find would be like 8.5 pounds. And that's using some super lightweight mahogany. This one, chambered and everything, it weighs a little under 7.5 pounds. So that's another pound lighter than the lightest historic I've ever thought of. Most other historics are usually around the 9.5 pound range. So a good 1 to 2 pounds lighter. So if you have a bad back, but you have to have the historic specs, definitely seek one of these buddies out. Tone-wise, I didn't really notice anything bad about this guitar. Again, there are some chambered guitars where they don't sound correct. But this is one of those ones that's in my exclusion list. It sounded phenomenal to me. It had that familiar Les Paul tone to it, but there's also something different about this particular one. I didn't notice it until about halfway through playing. This thing has flatwound strings on it. So if you don't know what that is, imagine you're running along your low E string. You feel those ridges on your string. Smooth those out, and that's kind of what you got. It's like a really fat top E string, but it's for all your strings. I believe these are more so for jazz and like your arch top guitars. These strings aren't as easy to bend on, and that kind of makes it easier for rhythm work and whatnot. This is the first time I've really got to sit down and play flatwound strings. They kind of inspired me to play like some bass lines and some other fun stuff. So I did have a great time playing this guitar. I thought the tone was great. I would highly suggest this run of guitars. And I'll leave you with another fun little fact. I guess Music Machine copyrighted the Cloud Nine name, and that's why Gibson can't advertise them as Cloud Nines. Some sort of hubbub with that. So now that we know a little bit more about this guitar, let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. Now that we know how this guitar sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. I really don't think this guitar was played that much, guys. You've got some light scratches and maybe a tiny scuff here or there on the face of the headstock from string changes, but very clean appearance. Your truss rod is perfectly functional, doesn't look like it's ever been touched. The frets show very, very minimal wear, just kind of in the first few frets. I mean, it does have flat wound strings on it, so that means your frets won't wear down a lot, but you can easily change those out to traditional ones if you wish. You have a beautiful light colored rosewood fretboard. I mean, this one's really rosy. Some rosewood's dark, some of it is light. I almost kind of prefer the look of the lighter colored one with this green finish. It looks more like woodlandy, like you've got this gecko on a tree or something. Something I forgot to mention about the logo is it looks like there's a slight green tint to it. It might just be reflecting some of the other green on the guitar, but I thought that was interesting enough to mention. On to the body here. Beautiful flame top. I wouldn't call this a monster top. It's really subtle flame, kind of. I mean, there's a lot of it. It's amazing, but I don't feel that this green finish brings it out like a sunburst finish does. So it seems more subtle, if you kind of get what I'm talking about here. But you've got some picking scratches, light nicks and dings. I would definitely say this is still in collectible condition, though. I mean, you can see there's not a lot going on here. A professional polish job would clean it up real good. You have burst bucker 1 and 2 pickups in here. In the neck pickup cavity, yes, you can see it is a long neck tenon, but there's also a piece of masking tape over it, and it reads REW6. I have no idea what that means. It comes off really easily, but I just put it back in there and left it alone. So I think it came from the factory that way. Maybe it was supposed to come off. This guitar is all original, meaning all the original parts come with it. There's been a few upgrades here. The owner changed the gold knobs for these black ones. And I don't know if I like these, because your other plastics are cream, right? So black doesn't really fit with them, but it kind of blends in with the darkness of the guitar and I think looks good. However, the gold ones, I don't feel like those fit either, except for maybe matching the binding. The original knobs are included in the sale. We'll take a look at those in the case portion of this. The only other thing that's been changed is Dunlop strap locks have been installed. Original buttons are also in the case, so you could restore it to original if you wanted to. Back of the headstock, serial number is CR94028. Now let's decode that here. For once, a custom shop guitar actually makes sense. CR stands for Chambered Reissue, so if you ever see that on a guitar, you know it is from a very limited edition run. The 9 tells you what model it is, from an R4 all the way to an R9 or RO. So this one is a 1959 reissue. Your next digit tells you what year it was made. This was a 2004 first run. And then the last 3 digits tells you the number of production. This one was the 28th R9 reissue chambered ever made. For being 14 years old, this thing is in great shape. I don't see any major nicks or dings anywhere on this guitar. You've just got like handling marks and whatnot. This is a very thick neck profile. I would definitely classify this one as 50s. So if you don't like fat necks, yeah, maybe try to seek out. I think the ROs will have a thinner neck profile. I would definitely like to try more of these out though. That'd be interesting to have like the wrap tail gold top with this. Back of the guitar. The mahogany has some beautiful wood grain, even almost a little bit of flame here when you get it in the light just right. But you don't have any major gouges out of the back of this guitar, even as I run the light over it here. So just light polishing swirls. You do have a small like scuff right here though. And the only dings I see are right here on the heel. I'm not quite sure how those happen, but they are there. Now we'll look at the sides. Everything's looking good. Got nice yellowed lacquer on the binding. And overall, I am glad I bought this guitar. It's not something I ever thought I would own. It's just, you know, Trogly's guitars. My colors are like black and green, so why not get the green 59 reissue? Speaking of my colors, Blacklight time. This is kind of interesting. Since it normally glows green and the finish is green, you kind of get a very interesting glow from this one. I mean, it's not too old. I don't think this thing has sat out in the sun too much, but we can tell that it is glowing the way I would expect to see, and it'll kind of help show if there's any clear coat wear anywhere, or stand rash, something like that. That always shows up really good under blacklight. But I'm not really seeing anything major to note here. The neck is also looking good. No breaks, cracks, or repairs on this one. And the face is also looking good. So, no excuses example here. It's just a fun green R9. Still worried this isn't a Gibson product? Oh my gosh, I have never seen so much case candy with something. So let's go over this really quickly. You've got your pre-packed checklist here. Serial number all works out. It shows 617 of 4. You've got a music machine pamphlet. Yes, this was sold by the original guy who wanted to make these. You actually have duplicate Bumblebee and Gibson custom arts. And it looks like 2 customer care guides, 4 case keys for some reason, vintage reissue strings that were originally on it. You've got the original polishing cloth, never been opened, the original Gibson lead, truss rod pamphlet, Mr. Dealer card front and back, some other good stuff there telling you about the truss rod, the ever so important certificate of authenticity, and there's your 4 original knobs and 2 original strap buttons. So yeah, that's a lot of case candy. The case itself is in really great shape. In that documentation site, it shows this guitar with like a tweed case with blue interior. It's at least an era correct case. It might have inherited this at some point in time, but it's in very clean shape. You just got some light scuffing here or there. Got your original silica packet. It's a dark maroon color. I mean, there's nothing really to go over about this case except for it has some light fuzz in it and whatnot. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this Cloud Nine 59 reissue in a green burst, check out that link in the description to take you to the Reverb for sale ad. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.